Previously on Unknown, Unsolved, Unseen, we continued to discuss the case of the Zodiac Killer, from his dripping pen card, as well as seemingly copycat murders of a cab driver and the almost abduction of Kathleen Johns and her daughter. The Zodiac continued to spur on one of the nation's most notorious unsolved serial murder cases. Join us today as we continue to discuss the letters, potential victims, suspects, and the legacy of the Zodiac Killer. Welcome back to
Unknown,
Unsolved,
Unseen.
Triple U.
Woohoo! Welcome.
Finally on part 4.
Yay! Episode 62, part 4.
This was so interesting, but I'm definitely ready for the Zodiac Killer to be done.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. We've done this, which is nice and all, but damn, we started talking about this in September. We're about to be in December.
Well, we did take a break in October for Spooky Month.
Spooky Month.
Yeah. Needless to say, though, I'm probably gonna take a little hiatus from true crime for a couple of weeks and do some other stuff that's probably a little bit lighter.
Yeah, well, she forces me to do some true crime for an episode coming up.
He's forcing me in a couple months to do a cryptid.
Cryptids are cool. That's the difference.
True crime is awesome. It's not cool that it happened, but it's cool to research.
But cryptids are cool that they happened, so hot checkmate atheists.
Oh, Jesus. Do you have any announcements for us today?
Okay, I should have my recap of the Carbon Daily Festival Instagram post up this week, hopefully. I keep forgetting to finish it up. It's like I have to record for like a minute and a half my voice of like recapping it, and I've just been so busy.
Unfortunately, our puppy is sick again.
Yeah.
He got kennel cough from boarding.
And worked been very busy. And yeah. I do all the social media.
But it was his birthday on Friday, and so now he's a big 1 year old.
Yep, and he just got up from his sleeping spot, and I think he's going to be bad boy again. Our dog was barking, and he just wanted us to lay on the couch with him, so we were there for the last, 30 minutes. I have no idea where we were just at. Hello, everybody, again.
Yeah, something after your Instagram post for Carbondale.
And then how I haven't been able to do it because we just been so busy with my work and him being sick.
Yeah.
So we're on episode 62 today. We're on the final part of the Zodiac Killer that has been spanning about 30 months now. So that is almost a whole season.
It's so long. And I'm so ready for it to be done.
All right.
But I couldn't leave everybody and just not do the 4th part, so...
I mean, you could. Should you? No. Will you? Probably not. So.
No, I always follow through.
All right. Are you ready to finish this up? Wrap us up on the Zodiac Killer on another long episode about this fiendish killer. And also, I forgot to mention, I am your fiendish host, Frank.
You're going to put yourself on the same line as the Zodiac.
Okay, you're right. I am your... let me think of this.
Not that easy, is it?
I am your investigative host, Frank.
I'm your armchair detective, Sage.
Oh, you got it that time. Woo!
I had a lot of time to think of one.
Well, because I took so long? You took so long, maybe.
Yeah. All right, so... Last time, we ended with the near abduction of Kathleen Johns and her daughter, and then the letter that came in from the Zodiac stating, claiming that he was responsible for that abduction. Previously, though, detectives were dismissive of Kathleen's recounting of the events, where she was kidnapped with her daughter until she hid in a ditch on the side of the road. But with that letter that stated the facts of the case that weren't known to the public, it was clear that it really was likely the Zodiac Killer who picked her and her daughter up. So it was another deviation from his MO, making it even more difficult to pinpoint who the killer could be. Thus, the San Francisco Police Department really had no choice but to take the gamble and hope that their position of postponing the acknowledgement of the bomb threat proved valuable in shaping the public opinion, especially of the police work that was being done. The statements were intended to minimize the public's fear and dampen their reaction. Something changed, though, after about a year of receiving these letters. Beginning with the Kathleen Johns letter, the San Francisco Chronicle decided they would not publish or acknowledge the receipt of such letters for an undetermined amount of time. Some say this is disappointing, though, as apparently the next letter was likely the most interesting of all of his communications with the press and the police. So 2 days after the Kathleen Johns letter, the killer decided to elaborate on what he meant by, quote, little list in a 5-page letter. The letter was signed with a large zodiac symbol and a new score. Zodiac symbol equals 13, SFPD equals 0. He wrote, "This is the Zodiac speaking. Being that you will not wear some nice Zodiac symbol buttons, how about wearing some nasty Zodiac symbol?" I'm saying Zodiac symbol, but it was a drawing there.
What? Oh,
buttons.
You won't wear nice ones, why don't you wear some nasty ones?
Yeah, or any type of Zodiac symbol, buttons. I shall.
The way you pause every time I say some Zodiac symbol. How about some nice Zodiac symbol?
Well,
Or how about some nasty Zodiac symbols?
We're not a video podcast, so I can't show you the symbol, so I gotta tell you what it is. Or any type of Zodiac symbol buttons that you can think up. If you do not wear any type of Zodiac symbol buttons, I shall, on top of everything else, torture all 13 of my slaves that I have waiting, and he spelled it WATEING.
Ah, gross.
For me in paradise. Again, dice is in dice.
A pair of dice.
Yeah. The remainder of the letter is divided into 2 sections, the first being a disturbing fantasy based on the killer's belief that all of his murder victims will become his slaves in the afterlife. He went on to explain in pretty graphic detail how he would be doing the torturing, to include things like anthills.
Anthills?
Yeah, splinters under their nails, and then burned. Cages, salt beef, hanging by their thumbs, burning in the sun, skinning them alive.
Hey, let's take a moment. We need to do our content warnings.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like if you listen to parts 1, 2, and 3, you should understand the content warning. So, discussion of torture, seizing of the police, murder, homicide. There is brief mentions of sexual assault, potential sexual assault, and things like that. Overall, if you're listening to this case, it's a bad case, so just be prepared.
Bad stuff happening in California.
Yeah. Wow, what a surprise. This time of the world. 1960s, 1970s. The second part of the letter is an adaptation of a verse.
The second part?
Yeah. Sung by the character Coco, the Lord High Executioner from The Mikado, which is a comedic opera by Gilbert and Sullivan. The content of this letter makes it known as the Mikado letter, as he parodied the song As Someday It May Happen, I Have a Little List, from this comedic opera, adding his own lyrics about his potential victims.
Here's the thing. Why I hate these letters. How many misspellings are there this time?
There's a lot. But I didn't write out the whole letter.
Okay. The misspellings just irk me so much because of how bad some of them are.
Yeah.
Like, some of them are so fucking dumb. And it just, I'm like, oh my God, just shut the fuck up. You're a weirdo. Turn yourself in.
The little list is in reference to Coco stating that as the Lord High Executioner, he had a little list of people always ready to be potential victims when he is called upon to do his duty of executions. So here's just a brief snippet of the Zodiac's modified version, because I was not about to write out the whole thing. Because again, that letter was 5 pages long. Way too much. As someday it may happen, with only 1 P, that a victim, T-O-M, must be found. I've got a little list. I've got a little list of society offenders who might well be underground, who would never be missed, who would never be missed. And then he goes on to describe what he sees as society offenders, which is honestly a lot of descriptions, ones that, I don't necessarily fully agree with, because I'm not about to say I agree with the Zodiac Killer. And I didn't write them all out because it was too many of them. If you're interested, go check out the letter. Anything and everything that he writes is pretty fucked up. So
wow, no shit. It's all fucked up from a serial killer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
That's my psych degree.
At
play.
Vic Tom. Oh,
yeah.
You're back on me hating his letters. It's not that I hate the case or I'm annoyed with you. It's just his writing just pisses me off because of how annoying. It's almost like smug.
It's got to be.
There's reason behind it.
I was gonna say there's got to be a reason that he spells stuff wrong.
It's so fucking smug as well.
Yeah, I do talk a little bit about that later.
The smugness in it, the purposeful misspellings, it's just like, get off your fucking high horse. You're a dirtbag. You're a fucking shithead. I don't know what else to call him. I mean, plenty of expletives. That's why our podcast has an E next to it for being explicit, because I really fucking hate this dude and some other people like him.
Yep.
He can go fuck himself.
He can. So the letter's postscript explained the Mount Diablo code from the previous letter. That was very confusing. And it says, quote, the Mount Diablo code concerns radians plus hashtag inches, which obviously is pound, along the radians. In 1981, Gareth Penn, who was an amateur detective and true crime author, deduced that when the map was divided as per the Zodiac's hint, 3 of his attacks aligned along one radian. On one arm of the radian lay the Blue Rock Springs and Lake Herman road murders, and on the other arm of the radian, centered on Mount Diablo, extended to the site of Paul Stein's murder. While the newspapers were going dark, that did not mean that the detectives and forensic analysts were not doing their job behind the scenes. Armstrong and Toshi, who I've talked about a little bit, the main detectives on it for the first almost decade, employed the professional services of Sherwood Morrill to confirm what everybody already knew to be true, that the handwriting from both the Kathleen Johns and the Mikado letters were a match to the previous handwriting in the case. Well, as close as handwriting analysis can get, because it's not the most definitive, but it is all they had at the time. The lab was also processing the letters for latent fingerprints, and after ruling out all of the individuals who may have touched the letter, detectives, analysts, etc., the latent fingerprints of maybe a thumb or index finger of the right or left hand were unable to be ruled out. So they do have a latent fingerprint to compare to. The detectives asked for help from the FBI. The inspector who performed the analysis of the latent fingerprints from the left ring finger looked similar to the bloody fingerprint that was obtained from Paul Stein's taxicab door. Again, it's left or right. I forgot to write that it was left or right. This is the only publicly known time where the law enforcement in this case acknowledged the similarities between fingerprints collected at numerous crime scenes and letters at the Zodiac. On October 5th of 1970, not 1970, but October 5th is my best friend's birthday. So, putting that out there.
But not in 1970.
No. Definitely not.
Yeah, I didn't think she was that old.
No. So on October 5th of 1970, the Chronicle, just like every other Monday, would release the news of the day. Somewhere in the Bay Area, though, someone wasn't reading the paper for the news, but rather cutting out words, phrases, and letters from the paper. He glued together a makeshift 3x5-inch postcard and addressed and sent it to the San Francisco Chronicle. The postcard would come from the Zodiac, seeing as he signed it with his signature symbol and his name, though this obviously could have been done by anyone who had access to the papers, we don't have a lot of handwriting to know for sure. But either way, he glued the postscript section upside down compared to the rest of the content of the letter, but I couldn't really tell if there was a purpose for that or not, or if anyone speculated if there was a purpose or not. But the letter stated, "Dear editor, you'll hate me, but I've got to tell you. The pace isn't any slower. In fact, it's just one big 13th 13. Some of them thought it was horrible. There are reports city police pig cops are closing in on me. FK, I'm crack proof. What is the price tag now?" I don't know how anyone is supposed to understand what the fuck this dude is saying.
I was about to say, what the hell is this man on?
If you look at the letter, you can tie in a little bit, this is basically him stating that he has 13 victims now.
Yeah, is this like the Watcher house where the dude was schizo posting, but in letters, and the Zodiac's doing the same thing?
Probably. I would not be surprised if this dude's got something on the schizophrenic spectrum. Or straight up, well, he's just a straight up sociopath. So. The killer also took a hole puncher and punched 13 holes along the right side of the letter, one column of 10 holes and a second column of 3. As he had done in the Mikado letter, the killer was referencing his 13 victims, but the police were only able to account for 5 victims that were definitively done by the Zodiac. So who the other 8 are, no idea. The postcard arrived at the Chronicle on Wednesday the 7th, and following a near 2-day examination of the card by the San Francisco Police Department detectives, little information could be found because there was no handwriting, and therefore the standard way of identifying if the letters were coming from the Zodiac was unable to be used. The detectives still concluded that it was authentic, though, simply because of the content of the letter. The postcard was published in the Chronicle on Monday, October 12th, as well as the previous 2 letters that the Chronicle and detectives had not told the public about, so the 2 that they were keeping dark. There was at least one inaccuracy in the reporting, though, in that what was published characterized the torture fantasy from the Mikado letter as a description of what the killer would do to his victims before murdering them, instead of what he would do to them when they became his slaves in the afterlife. I did see this noted in a couple sources, but I don't know that there's any significance to it other than trying to not cause incredibly mass hysteria in the public. By October 27th, 1970, the killer had written to the Chronicle 6 times since the end of April, and he wasn't done.
Oh my god, dude, just shut up.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about you besides getting you caught so you can be gone.
True. The next card that he would send, the third of his greeting cards, is nicknamed the Halloween card. Oh, I thought we talked about that last time.
Did we? We might not have actually talked about the Halloween card.
I think I might have talked to you briefly about it while I was researching.
Maybe. That was 2 weeks ago. My brain has been fried from so many things.
No, we didn't talk about it. The next card that he would send, the third of his greeting cards, is nicknamed the Halloween card, and as usual was sent to the offices of the Chronicle, but this time he addressed it to a specific person, Paul Avery.
Aw, Paul's special.
Paul Avery, the man who had authored the vast majority of the Zodiac articles for the Chronicle. He did misspell it, though, as Paul Averly, but obviously everyone knew who the letter was for. The front of the letter showed a skeleton next to the following text, stating, "From your secret pal, I feel it in my bones, you ache to know my name, and so I'll clue you in." Then on the inside he continued, "But then, why spoil the game? Happy Halloween." Next to the skeleton on the front was the number 14, likely referencing his own victim count. Weirdly though, the killer cut out a paper pumpkin and glued it over the groin area of the skeleton though. And at this point, it would be he is identifying that he killed another person between the letter that we just talked about and the Mikado letter in this one. On the inside of the card, he put a second skeleton with the number 4-teen over it and the word boo in the middle of the card. On the bottom right side of the card, the author wrote a new symbol. The symbol looked a bit like a V formed by 2 lines that intersected at a right angle, but there was 2 small lines coming out of the right side at a right angle and one on the left side at 1 line at a right angle. So the best way I can describe this is like, you know, how you would draw like mountains as a kid or like teeth.
Yes.
So like that or whatever, one of the sides just has an extra line underneath it rather than it just being one single line going up and down.
Weird.
Yeah. He then added 4 dots in what is probably meaningful, but who knows, with 2 in the center of the main V. So like the middle part has 2 dots in the middle and 1 on either side of the V underneath the additional lines, the other side of the ones that has the extra lines. He then drew his ever-famous Zodiac symbol as well as a Z. There were also lots of eyes drawn on the inside too, as well as a spider web. Around one of the eyes he wrote, "Peekaboo, you are doomed."
Peekaboo, you are doomed.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking child.
Yeah. So the eyes there was 13 eyes, or there was 13 eyes, I think, symbolizing 13 victims he already killed, but I'll go in a little more in a second. On the back of the card, he had created 4 quadrants using the word paradise, again, spelled with a C the way he does, down the center from the top to bottom, and slaves from right to left in the middle, where the second A in paradise matches with the A in slaves. Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Like, it makes a cross, and where they intersect is the second A of paradise and the A in slaves. So they share the letter A in the middle. And it makes like a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So are you saying the top A? Because it's A's on top of each other, right?
No, it's the same A.
Same A.
So it's like P-A-R-A.
Oh, okay.
And then S-L-A.
Like a crossword.
Yeah.
So it's like a crossword puzzle where the A is the shared letter.
Yes.
Like Scrabble or a crossword puzzle.
Way better way of describing it.
Like, at first I'm like, I thought you meant like there's a cross and there's an A on the top of one and an A in the other.
No, I meant that they cross each other
no.
in the shape of a cross.
Crossword puzzle, bananagrams, Scrabble, you name it. I got it.
Yeah, that's a way better description than what I had, so thank you. But
I just had to visualize it, and I'm like, oh, that's where I could see it.
I wish that I could show everybody, like, as we're doing this, the letters and stuff, because they're freaking crazy. But in the 4 quadrants, he wrote a single phrase in each one. One says, by fire, by gun, by rope, and by knife.
By golly gee willikers.
Sure. Inside the envelope in which the card came in, the killer had also written his new symbol, so the little V thing with the dots, and, quote, sorry, no cipher, 2 times intersecting where they created a cross as well. So again, Scrabble type. Questions arose when the card was looked at more closely. Reportedly, there were only 13 eyes drawn, and yet the skeleton was labeled as 14. Does this symbolize a 14th victim already taken? Or is it that the, quote, you are doomed from the front is a threat to Paul Avery and that he will be the 14th victim? Who knows?
I don't know.
So the newspaper published the letter, funnily enough, on Halloween, so the 31st of that year, and they had it on the front page, which is usually where the Zodiac wants it. Funnily enough, someone at the Chronicle thought it would be funny to make buttons that read, I am not Paul Avery. And several members of the staff, including Paul himself, wore the buttons for a brief time. So in some kind of way, the killer did get his precious buttons. They just weren't the ones he wanted.
They weren't Zodiac symbol buttons?
Yeah.
Too bad there I'm not Paul Avery buttons instead of it is those nasty Zodiac symbol buttons. I gotta do the pauses that you did.
I just love that Paul wore one too. I'm like, you go, man. Like, I'm not Paul Avery. I'm definitely not Paul Avery.
Look at me. No, I don't look like Paul Avery, nor do I act like Paul Avery. Totally not Paul Avery. I bet that would stand up in a court of law.
If it doesn't sound like a duck and it doesn't look like a duck, then it's probably not a duck. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, so following the letter, the killer stopped communicating for about 4.5 months. When he started to write again, he again wrote 2 letters in quick succession. Sometime on Saturday, March 13th, 1971, the killer made his way to Pleasanton, California, which is about 40 minutes east of San Francisco, and put a letter into a public mailbox. This time he wrote to the Los Angeles Times instead of the San Francisco Chronicle. He wrote, quote, this is the Zodiac speaking. Like I have always said, I am crack-proof. If the blue meanies, with 2 N's, so MEANNIES.
That's not as bad for a moment. You said 2 N's, but I thought you said 2 E's, so I thought it was me, knees.
No.
And then I'm like, wait, no, she said N, not E.
Yeah.
I just like trying to expect which thing he fucked. Whenever you stop from him, like, I try and take a guess of what he fucked up in the word.
I don't know that well, there's not a whole lot of spelling errors in this one.
Oh, thank God.
But it's really weird. Not that any of them aren't weird, but. So, if the blue meanies are ever going to catch me, they had best get off their fat asses plus do something. Because the longer they fiddle plus fart around, the more slaves I will collect for my afterlife. I do have to give them credit for stumbling across my Riverside activity, which I'm going to touch about in the potential victims later. So remember Riverside. But they are only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there. The reason that I'm writing to the Times is this. They don't bury me on the back pages like some of the others. Meaning that he wants to be on the front page, and the other papers usually post him not on the front page, sometimes as a dig towards him. The letter was analyzed.
Oh, your widow feelings hurt.
Yeah. The letter was analyzed and found to be authentic to the killer through handwriting analysis, as many of the others. Both the LA Times and the Chronicle published the arrival of the letter in their March 16th newspaper editions. So just a couple days later, it was 3 days later. The Times, though, published it on page 3, while the Chronicle, ironically, published it on page 1. So it did the opposite of what he said, in that they usually they bury me in the back or whatever. They did both omit the word fat asses and plus fart in what they considered to be, quote, the interest of journalistic standards.
Wait, sorry, what'd you say?
They omitted, they took out the part where he called the meanies fat asses, and then said because the longer they fiddle plus fart around, they took the plus fart out and just made it because the longer they fiddle around for journalistic standards purposes.
My goodness.
Yep.
I always thought the Zodiac Killer was an interesting case, but the more you tell me the details, the more I feel like I'm losing brain cells to this idiot.
Tell me about it. I feel like I have none left. That's why I'm going to do some lighter stuff for the Christmas month.
I regret you doing the Zodiac Killer because he's such a fucking clown. Holy shit. I didn't realize it. God damn, Ted Cruz's dad was out of control.
I thought it was Ted Cruz himself.
I don't know.
I'll actually go into that later.
I know it's 2016. People made memes about it all the fucking time.
I definitely have said it many times.
Yeah, 9 years ago that was. About to be 10.
I don't really want to talk about it. That's crazy.
We're old people now.
No. So just a few days later, on March 22nd of 1971, the killer would write again, and he wrote on a blank 4-cent postcard that he purchased from the post office. He put an image of a ski village in the woods that had been cut from an ad for a new condominium development. He again used a hole punch to scallop the edges of the card. Do you understand what that means?
Oh my god, I used to understand this. Is it like where it's like...
Yeah.
You could see... You know what? You guys didn't understand a word I fucking said because I did I showed scallop look like with my fingers, like in the air, and so she's like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, there's no way they know it. It's like... you know, like an old ice cream shop that has like an awning with the fabric. What the fuck? I don't think this is going to relate to anything.
No. Do you know?
I know what you mean, but who the fuck's going to think of an old ice cream shop parlor or whatever?
I'm talking about what it looks like.
Oh, wait. Is scalloped, is it sharp or?
No, it's rounded.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's a hole punch. So they're rounded.
I might be thinking of the wrong thing. You know what? I have this thing called Google.
Why don't you look up the card, because it's pretty interesting.
Oh, no, I'm looking up scallop paper.
I'm pretty sure it's rounded.
Okay. I see. It's like where, yeah, you got almost like doilies almost on the end.
Yeah. Whatever you need to use to describe it.
I know what the word doilies is. You know why I know that?
I'm assuming your mom?
No, the Venture Bros.
Oh.
There's a moment they sneak into a I guess mental hospital. What are they called now?
Behavioral health.
Yeah,
center?
I don't know. It was one for supervillains, and they were snuck into arts and craft. And one guy is like, "You know why mine are better than everyone else's?" One answer: doilies. I'm like, that's how I learned doilies.
I would have thought your mom had some of them.
She probably did over arts and craft, but that's not how I learned it. I learned it from Hank Venture from the Venture Bros.
I'm pretty sure she's made us cards that have a doily-like pattern 100%. On them. 100%.
Also, she does an amazing job making cards. Love you, Mom. I know you listen.
Yes. Thank you, Mom.
What's the letter called?
It is called the Peek Through the Pines letter.
Zodiac Peek Through the Pines. Ah, yeah, I see you. I hate how you, like, cut out letters.
Yeah.
This will probably be the picture for the Instagram post. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm running out of Zodiac Killer related things to post.
There's a lot of
Instagram
different
post.
pictures we could put for this one, but we can talk about that too. So yeah, he did continue his pattern of cutting out letters and phrases from multiple Bay Area and California papers, including quotes, sought victim 12, quote, peek through the pines, quote, past Lake Tahoe areas, quote, Sierra Club, and quote, around in the snow. He also put his zodiac symbol in the lower right corner, as was customary for him.
Also, around in the snow is upside down.
I did not write that down.
Yeah, I did. I'm looking at it right now. Around in the snow is upside down.
Okay.
Which is...
So that's pretty customary for him, too, because he usually writes one phrase upside down.
Oh, I didn't realize
on the picture
that.
letter, yeah, on the postcards.
Did you mention that earlier or no?
Yeah, on the other one, he had written, like when it was the one that says the skeleton one, he had written something upside down on that one.
I didn't. I must have went right over my head that you said that earlier. All right, then continue on then.
So on the address side of the postcard, the killer again used his hole punch to place a hole in the return address area. He then wrote the word Zodiac above the symbols, and his symbol using the hole punch using his symbol as the hole punch in the center. That makes sense. Like,
sure, I'm just going to say yes.
Okay. He then cut out the names of 3 different newspapers, the Times in reference to LA Times, the SF Examiner, and the SF or San Francisco Chronicle. He also wrote, quote, ATT, that stands for attention, Paul Averly equals Chronicle. Again, he spelled it Averly instead of Avery. But it was delivered to the Chronicle on Monday evening, March 22nd.
Maybe he should have been wearing buttons that say, I'm not Paul Averly.
Yeah. And since most of the words, again, were cut from newspapers, there again was very little handwriting to analyze. But the handwriting expert concluded that the words conform and are consistent with all other Zodiac writings I have examined. So in terms of, like, the phrasing and, you know, the credit he's taken for other stuff and how he, like, puts words together, I guess, they're saying that it seems pretty plausible that they're written by the same man. A few years later, yep, you heard that right. A few years later, the Zodiac would reemerge with a new letter, which has been nicknamed the Exorcist letter. He placed the letter into an envelope, addressed it to the San Fran Chronicle, with the familiar phrase of, please rush to editor. On Tuesday, January 29th, 1974, the killer dropped the envelope into a mailbox, and it made its way to the Chronicle. And the reason it's called the Exorcist letter is because he writes, quote, I saw plus think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy, comedy, that I have ever seen.
Say that again.
I saw plus think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy, except he spells it comedy instead of edy.
Comedy? It still works, kind of. Sorry, for some reason you're spelling that, and I thought you were spelling satirical different. And I'm like, sorry, it's
a long one.
My mind blanks and when you say some of these, and I just train it off, derails entirely.
Yeah. So it was the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen. He wrote a new value on this letter, 37, meaning the killer wanted readers to believe that he had murdered an additional 20-plus people since the March 13th, 1971 letter, nearly 3 years earlier. The killer also had some unusual symbols at the bottom of this letter resembling Chinese or Japanese characters, but ultimately they were unable to be deciphered as any part of those languages.
So I'm just saying, guess he tried to imitate the language.
Probably. And then another few years later, in 1978, the Zodiac may have written again in what is called the, quote, I am back with you letter. The letter had, quote, instantly recognizable handwriting and was also written in the signature blue felt tip pen. The letter called out specific people by name, Herb Cahen, a popular columnist for the Chronicle, and Toshi, referring to Inspector David Toshi, who, it's Toshi.
T-O-S?
Toshi or Toshi?
Toshi, I think that is.
Toshi, okay, who had been hunting the Zodiac for over 9 years at this point. The Postal Service crime lab head Shimoda, that I had mentioned earlier.
Shimoda?
Yeah. Shimoda. The one who has been analyzing the handwriting all along. They authenticated the other letters. again authenticated this letter, stating it was likely authored by the same man who had written the previous Zodiac letters. So now is where we get into the potentials.
So who it could be?
Of anything.
Oh, are we done with fuck-ass letters?
No.
Oh my, honey.
So
You gotta work with me here. My brain hates this man.
I know. So the next part is going to be potential victims of the Zodiac. So confirmed, they can only confirm 5.
Damn.
But he's saying he's got like 37 or more.
I mean, there's a few serial killers that have lied about how many they have, and some that were
course.
very. We know there should be more. Like Ted Bundy, there's multiple believed to be also from him.
Definitely.
That could be a whole episode. The potential unsolved Bundy killings.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
I considered doing that for myself. I'm like, I don't know where I'd begin. And I'm thinking that would better suit you. How about we do that in another year? Because
I'll do that.
We're a little
next summer.
Seeing that I'll be doing a true crime episode in 3 episodes from now, I think people might be a little true crimed out.
No, that's so fair. I'm pretty sure that I wait a good bit to do another true crime one for myself. So
yeah, that'll be my first one in about 25 episodes.
Yeah,
which is more.
I've done enough for the whole year,
and that's fair for me to do one every 25. You still have not done. I have a
cryptid one set up for January.
You haven't done a UFO since episode 20.
I have a alien one set up for December. And urban legends.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
I just like stirring the pot at times.
So, at that point, this is the point where we end, like, what we're pretty confident is we can directly tie to the Zodiac. And I say we because, again, I nicknamed myself as an armchair detective earlier in this episode, and I'm going to, go with it. So the next part we're going to do is the potential victims. So there's no consensus to how many victims the Zodiac actually has. But it makes, some kind of sense that many murders and attacks that were in the 1960s and 1970s could be seen as possible Zodiac crimes, seeing as he thinks he has 37 victims. But none of these have been confirmed, but those similarities are, not coincidental. So we're going to go all the way back to 1962. So about 6 years or so before the first definitive killing from the Zodiac. That was in 1968. So on April 9th, 1962, a man called the police in Oceanside, California, and said, quote, "I'm going to pull something here in Oceanside, and you'll never be able to figure it out." And at 11:10 p.m. on April 10th, so the following day, cab driver Raymond Davis, who was 29, told his dispatcher he was taking a fare to South Oceanside. The next day, his body was found near the mayor's house in St. Malo, a gated community in Oceanside. And just a few days later, the suspected killer called the police again and stated, quote, "Do you remember me calling you last week and telling you that I was going to pull a real baffling crime? I killed the cab driver, and I'm going to get me a bus driver next." Following this call, obviously police began to place armed guards on buses, and from what I could find, there wasn't any bus drivers killed. So, in 2019, a lot of people are still working on this case. I mean, we're talking, journalists are still working. It's the same thing that happened with Michelle McNamara, who was researching the Golden State Killer for a very long time. That was in the 2010s, into the early 20s, because we caught him in 2020. People are still doing that with Zodiac. People are still actively working on the Zodiac case today. So in 2019, the unsolved murder here was connected to the Zodiac when Christy Hawthorne, the director of the Oceanside Historical Society, was researching St. Malo for another project. She stumbled upon a story about Raymond Davis's murder, and further research dug up several parallels to the Zodiac killings. Do we remember what killing this sounds like? Paul Stine. Paul Stine's murder was 7 years after Raymond's, but the similarities are uncanny. Both murders of the cab drivers involved wealthy neighborhoods. Both victims were 29 years old. The ammunition was a .22 caliber, which matches the Lake Herman Road attack as well. The taunting of the police and the threat against buses also followed the Zodiac after the murder of Paul Stine. So after Raymond Davis, he threatened bus drivers. After Paul Stine, he threatened the buses with kids. Hawthorne presented her findings to the Oceanside Police Department, which began an inquiry into the similarities. But I'm not really sure that there was anything found from this or that they took the claim seriously. But seems pretty plausible. So, the next is Robert George Domingos, who was 18, and his fiancee, Linda Faye Edwards, who was 17. This was a different fucking time. This is 1963. We're talking people who were engaged at 17 and 18.
Different times back then.
Yeah. So these were high school sweethearts from Lompoc High School. Looking forward to graduation, Robert had secured a position with the Richfield Oil Company, and the two were planning to marry in a small wedding in November of 1963. Fortunately, they would not make it to their wedding day, though. So while participating in senior, quote, ditch day, which I'm sure we can all understand what that means, on June 4th of 1963, this day, by the way, was put together by the school administration, so the school was aware that kids were doing it, and they had... the rest of the class was signed up to go to the Santa Barbara beach. So there was like a whole list of people who were going to be at that beach. Robert and Linda were not on that list. So they didn't go to the Santa Barbara beach with everybody else, but instead they found themselves going to the Gaviota State Park, which is just west of the Tahoe.
I won't trust you because I can't read it right now because it's obviously on your screen.
It's Tajiguas.
Sure.
Tahiguas?
Maybe.
We're going to go with that. Tahiguas. With another couple named Shirley and her boyfriend, but that did end up falling through when Shirley's boyfriend had to work. But the couple continued on their own version of Ditch Day and headed to the secluded beach area off Coastal Highway 101 at the Gaviota State Park. When the couple failed to return home the following day, their parents called the police and reported them missing. The evening of June 5th, so the following day, Robert's father, Hutch, and a few friends ventured to the popular spot that Robert and Linda had gone to. But I'm not sure that he knew that's where they went, or he suspected it, since they hadn't gone with the school to Santa Barbara. Just before 9 p.m., the group found the 1957 Pontiac that Robert had been driving in a dense part of the forest that concealed it from Highway 101. It was locked, but inside was Linda's purse and other items that belonged to the couple, seemingly undisturbed as well. After running and calling the police at the closest payphone, the team headed down to the beach to look for the couple, with the police officer who had arrived. About 10 p.m., they happened upon a crudely built shack. Inside the shack lay the bodies of Robert and Linda, with Robert face down and Linda faced up on top of him because of how small the shack was. Linda's one-piece suit had been cut open to expose her breasts, but there's no evidence of other sexual assault. The two had been shot multiple times, Robert 11 and Linda 8, by a .22 caliber firearm by an unknown assailant. The shack appeared to have also been lit on fire, unsuccessfully. Using the scene and their autopsies, police believe that the assailant attempted to bind the couple with pre-cut rope. The same MO as the Lake Berryessa attacks.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Sounds, you know what's awful about that?
What?
I remember that partially because of that fuck ass at the Renaissance Fair.
True. Yeah, fuck that guy. But, again, this is years earlier, right? Like 6 years earlier.
Because it hadn't been connected with anybody because there's no survivors, how would they know to connect it? Say, like, if this happened after that, what was it? The one where the one guy survived?
Lake Berryessa?
Yeah, the Lake Berryessa. If this one you're talking about now happened after Lake Berryessa, they may have connected it. But because it happened how many years prior?
About 6.
6 years before, then you wouldn't connect it because that's so long.
And also, like, at this time, I know I've said it before with other cases and in this case, police departments aren't talking to each other. That's why it took forever to get the Golden State Killer caught, because he was in so many different jurisdictions, but nobody wanted to share information.
Including his own jurisdiction, because he's a fucking cop.
Yeah, fuck that guy. The Winchester Western Super X copper-coated bullets also matched the Zodiacs.
What a name for a bullet.
I know. The lot number of the .22 caliber ammunition was traced to an April purchase from a store in Santa Barbara. The only other place that lot number turned up was at the Vandenberg Air Force Base near Lompoc. Investigators looked into the purchases of the ammunition at both locations, but I didn't see that much came from it. I would assume that because there was not as, like, I'm sure that credit cards were newer. in this era, right? Or not yet?
I have no idea, actually.
Either way, they probably don't have the same logs as what we do now, of course.
Yeah, probably.
And so because nothing came from it, the case went cold. But by 1972, so this is after the confirmed Zodiac killings, new detectives had inherited the case and were working on sending out statewide APBs describing the murders and soliciting information regarding similar crimes throughout the California area and surrounding states. So in 1972 press conference, Santa Barbara County Sheriff John Carpenter stated, quote, "There now appears to be a high degree of probability that the Zodiac committed the murders, and although the anticipated response to this statement would be one out of skepticism, let me say that we do not make this assertion frivolously." What he's saying is, like, we're pretty sure we can connect this because of the circumstantial evidence stating, like, with the bullets and the crime scene and how it was set up, things like that. When San Francisco police detectives Bill Armstrong, again, and Dave Toschi investigated the murders in 1972, Toschi had also said that a connection was possible. And later, a classmate of Domingos and Edwards, who became a clinical psychologist, dope, but was also a police officer, which I think every police officer should have a psych degree, said in 2011, quote, "I believe the murders were the work of the Zodiac Killer, but I can't prove it." Of course. So the murders of Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards are considered to still be unsolved today. On February 4th, 1964, Johnny Ray Swindle and Joyce Ann Swindle, who were both 19, a newlywed couple from Alabama that was on their honeymoon, were shot while walking along and gazing at the ocean on Ocean Beach in San Diego. A sniper with a .22 caliber long rifle shot them 5 times from a nearby cliff. The killer then got down off of the cliff, went to them onto the beach, and shot each of them once in the head at close range. Similar to the Zodiac murders, Johnny was shot behind the ear, which was the same that happened with the one where he was leaning up against the car door before he died. Despite multiple bullet wounds, he remained alive for hours, but then unfortunately died at the hospital.
I was able to give that information? Or
no.
How'd they get that, like, details?
Because so you'll figure it out in a second. Joyce died almost instantly from shots to her back, left arm, and her head. The killer took Joyce's necklace, as well as Johnny's wallet and Timex watch. The killer's nest, what they call a sniper nest, was discovered 50 feet away from where the couple was killed. So that's how they put that together. Also remember the Timex watch. Both the Ocean Beach and Lake Herman Road murders.
Do I remember it like I remember the Alamo?
I don't know. Used a .22 caliber Remington Arms Model 550-1 rifle, but some state that the ballistics didn't match the cartridges found at the 2 scenes. Later in 1968, though, based on FBI ballistics analysis, the San Diego Chief of Police, O.J. Rowan, said he believed the weapon used was the same model, again, the Remington automatic rifle Model 550-1. Johnny's mother said she could not think of him having any enemies, so she wouldn't know who went after the couple. But his sister theorized that the Zodiac may have been the culprit. Police had investigated a 51-year-old man living in a nearby beach shack, kind of like the shack from above, a teenager that was alleged by a priest to be very violent, and a 19-year-old Marine from San Diego who killed his parents and sister in Illinois. But ultimately, police speculated the Swindles were instead victims of a, quote, thrill killer. And they also saw a parallel with the Domingos and Edwards murders. In both the Santa Barbara and Ocean Beach killings, the victims were shot from a distance, then again at close range. The San Diego Reader noted that the murders at Lake Berryessa, Santa Barbara, and Ocean Beach were all near bodies of water. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not.
I feel like there's bodies of water in many places, and those also might be, like, more secluded. Like, people want their own personal space, so it might be...
They're lovers' lanes.
It might be opportunistic.
Yeah, and they're lovers' lanes. Like, yeah. It's just going to be them. But again, just like the others, these murders remain unsolved. A potential victim that could also be linked to the Zodiac Killer is that of 18-year-old Riverside City College student Sherry Jo Bates. She was described as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and slender-built cheerleader who was well-known and well-liked among her peers. She was also heavily invested in her academic career and even worked a part-time job at the same time to pay for her expenses. And she drove a lime green Volkswagen Beetle, which I think is fucking awesome. What a cool color. So, very noticeable car, right? The year 1966 introduced a lot of change in Sherry's life, including her brother enlisting for the U.S. Navy and her mom divorcing her dad and moving out. Additionally, after graduating from Ramona High School in the spring, she enrolled in Riverside City College and began attending classes in the fall. By the end of October, the 30th, to be specific, of 1966, Sherry was more acclimated to the college atmosphere despite living at home with her father, whom everyone states she had a great relationship with. On this night, Sherry had told her father she would likely stay home and study while he was at the beach, but there was the possibility that she would go to the library for some books. Saying goodbye to his daughter would be the last time that her father would see her alive. Sometime between 3 and 3:45 p.m., Sherry called her friend Stefani, asking her to accompany her to the campus library. However, Stefani was unable to join her, and so presumably Sherry didn't go at that time. A short while later, between 4:30 and 5 p.m., Sherry's friends drove by the house and observed her lime green Beetle still in the driveway, indicating she was still likely home at this time. With the library opening back up at 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., following a break for dinner in the 5 o'clock hour, Sherry would be seen driving her Beetle at about 6:15 p.m. headed towards the campus, where she entered the library at about 7:15 as observed by some of her peers. And while not seen by anyone, she likely spent her evening at the campus library annex until it closed at 9. So she's seen going in, but no one's really seeing her within the building. After her father returned home, he found a note from her stating she was going to go to the library, and so he waited for her. And waited some more, until he became so concerned that he filed a missing persons report. Unfortunately, at 6:30 a.m. on October 31st, 1966, so Halloween, Cleophas Martin, a groundskeeper at Riverside Community College, was working the street sweeper on the Terracina Drive when he passed the driveway between addresses 3680 and 3682.
Well, how long is this after the disappearance?
This is within hours.
Okay.
So the next morning.
Okay, I forgot the initial date.
That's fine. So he noticed something particular and decided to check it out. Unfortunately, it would be the body of 18-year-old Sherry Jo Bates. Reportedly, the two houses that shared this driveway were abandoned and were supposed to be demolished for campus renovations, so it likely made for a secluded area, just like you were saying earlier, opportunistic. After examining the evidence, police were able to put together a probable picture of what happened to Sherry on the fateful evening. After arriving to the library to check out some books, it's likely that someone, presumably a man, based on the brutality of this murder, broke into the back of her car, where her engine was, and disabled the car by tampering with the condenser and the distributor. By the time Sherry returned to her vehicle and placed her newly checked out books on the passenger side, the killer was likely waiting in place for his moment. After Sherry made several unsuccessful attempts to start her car, the killer likely approached Sherry and offered to help. Police discovered greasy palm prints and fingerprints on the interior of the driver's side door, likely indicating that the man had pretended to identify what the problem was. Shortly after, Sherry left the proximity of her car, likely on the promise that the man could help her somehow or provide her a ride to where she needed to go, something she could do to get help for her car. The driveway where she was found was about 75 yards from her car, so what happened next is unclear, but investigators put together what they think happened. Neighbors of the area reported hearing a, quote, awful scream, followed by a, quote, muted scream, and then a, quote, loud sound like an old car being started up. This was around 10 to 10:30 p.m. Unfortunately for Sherry, none of these neighbors would call the police to report the screams, in what we call the bystander effect.
Fucking hate the bystander effect.
And so you know what it is?
Yeah.
What is it?
The fact that everybody knows what's going on, but they think somebody else will deal with it instead, so they do nothing about it. Therefore, people will go murdered and dying because it's somebody else's problem.
Do not be the bystander.
Yeah.
Step in. According to analysis of the crime scene, it appears that Sherry fought off her attacker and scratched and clawed the murderer until there was human skin and hair underneath her fingernails. These scrapings would later reveal that Sherry's killer was likely white and a male. Unfortunately, I believe at this time, though, DNA analysis was very juvenile.
The usual suspects for murder.
And so they wouldn't have been able to find much more than that. And additionally, as I've talked about previously, there's a lot of times where police departments won't share information with one another, and there was no combined DNA index system or CODIS at this time, which is the national database for DNA. Unfortunately, despite Sherry's clear attempts to fight off her attacker, she was beaten and stabbed multiple times until she passed. An autopsy revealed that her throat had been slashed in 3 different places, and the fatal blow was a cut to the jugular vein in her voice box. She also had stab wounds to her chest, back, and cuts on her face. She was discovered face down on a dirt driveway. A man's Timex watch was found about 10 feet away from her and thought to be the killer's because it had blood on it. The watch was the same brand of watch that was taken from Johnny at the Johnny Ray swindle crime scene.
Wait, say the last part again?
So a man's Timex watch was found 10 feet away from her.
And it's the same one from the other crime scene?
It's the same brand.
So same brand, okay. But you can't determine it's the same one.
I haven't seen definitive evidence, but
same general area of murders, same type of watch left behind.
And the Johnny Ray murders were before this one.
Yep.
So if he had taken it from that scene, he had it with him.
And this is before the main Zodiac Killer?
Yeah,
stuff?
This is all before.
Maybe this is him trying his first thing to connect all of his murders by leaving little clues, but nobody was really looking into that yet until when he started being more blunt about it.
Yeah. The watch stopped at 12:24 a.m., but the police believe that the attack had occurred much earlier, especially due to the reports from the neighbors that the screams happened between 10 and 10:30.
Fuck the neighbors.
Yeah, so no one really knows why the clock stopped that late then. Unfortunately, despite the copious efforts put forth by the Riverside Police Department, the Attorney General, and multiple other law enforcement agencies in the area, little additional information was found. 1 month later, on November 29th, nearly identical typewritten letters in unstamped envelopes were mailed to the Riverside Police and the Riverside Press Enterprise, titled, quote, The Confession. Both had addresses written in black felt tip pen. The author claimed responsibility for the Bates murder, providing details of the crime that were not released to the public. The author also warned that Bates is, quote, not the first and she will not be the last. I'm not going to read this letter because, to be honest, it's incredibly dark and there is a lot of vulgar language, and he also blames Sherry for dying.
Fuck him.
Yeah, so I didn't feel like I was not going to write that out. In December of 1966, a poem was discovered carved into the bottom side of a desktop in the Riverside Community College Library, the exact one Sherry was at, but 2 months later. Titled, quote, Sick of Living / Unwilling to Die, the poem's language and handwriting resembled that of the Zodiac's letters. It was signed with what were assumed to be a set of lowercase initials, RH. And 4 years later, Paul Avery, our good friend Paul Avery, would venture to Riverside to learn about the possible connections between this murder and the Zodiac killings. First, there was a trio of
Paul Avery?
Yeah. First, there was a trio of short anonymous letters that were postmarked and mailed on April 30th, 1967, 6 months after Sherry's murder, to the day. They had been addressed to the Riverside Press Enterprise, the Riverside Police Department, and Sherry's father, Joseph Bates. The letters were signed with the symbol that looked like the letter Z, with a horizontal squiggly line through the top.
Maybe his first attempt at a logo.
That's what I'm thinking too. Avery convinced the Riverside Police to send copies of the handwriting evidence from this case to the California Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation for analysis. During the 1970 investigation, Sherwood Morrill, California's top questioned documents examiner, expressed his opinion that the poem and letters were written by the Zodiac, and Avery would go on to publish his analysis in the newspaper. On March 13th, 1971, 5 months after Avery's article linking the Zodiac to the Bates murder through the circumstantial evidence he had found, the Zodiac would mail a letter to the Los Angeles Times. In the letter, he credited the police, instead of Avery, for discovering, quote, his Riverside activity, but they're only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there.
God, you didn't give the right person credit.
Yeah, but that's the connection between Bates and the Zodiac. The murder of Sherry Bates and the Zodiac Killer. So the timeline is bejumbled, but it all comes together.
So we're fairly certain that he's for Riverside.
He at least claims to be.
Then we can if that is true, which it does seem like it is based on the analysis plus the letter. Granted, he'll probably take credit for whatever, but the analysis I trust more. Then I'm going to take a guess at the other one of the two being shot with the watch. I know this is a stretch, but I'm going to give that one credence.
Yeah. So, ultimately the connection between Bates and the Zodiac remains uncertain, which sucks. But plausible, for sure. On June 8th, 1967, Enadine Molina, who was 35, and Furman Rodriguez, who was 36, were parked on Vallecitos or Vallecitos? I would say if it's Hispanic, it's probably Vallecitos. How do you say double L? Is it Y?
Yeah.
Vallecitos?
Sure.
Road in Alameda County in California. A stranger approached and told them to get out of the car. Rodriguez was fatally...
What year again?
This is in 67.
And when was the first, is it the quote-unquote first before we got to the Riverside one?
The end of 68.
Okay. So we're 1 year prior.
No. The first definitive Zodiac killing was 1968. The Riverside one was 66.
Okay, and then this one is 67?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I'm
sorry. I thought you meant when's the Zodiac
that's not
one?
good. It's all over the place. This is 1 year before the first Zodiac.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going in order up until... So I did all of the Zodiac.
Okay.
Now we're backtracking to the one that...
So first we backtracked 6 years, and then we backtracked 2 years, and now we're at 1 year.
Yeah, so we're finding our way back up to 1968 when they started.
That's what I just wanted to make sure. This is a very confusing timeline.
I'm very sorry.
That's not your fault that this guy's a fucking dick.
Yeah. So a stranger approached and told them to get out of their car. Rodriguez was fatally shot, and Molina was abducted. The killer stopped near the Sunol Regional Wilderness, and Molina tried to escape, but she was ultimately killed. Rape and robbery were ruled out as motives because nothing seemed to be taken from the couple, and it did not appear that there had been any sexual assault. And they occurred near Pleasanton. And the March 1971 Zodiac letter, so 4 years later, to the Los Angeles Times was postmarked in Pleasanton. So it's possible that the Zodiac has connections in the different areas where he's sending his letters from. Or that's a clue of hey, go look at Pleasanton for murders there, because obviously you're missing them. I don't know. Now we're past the first couple Zodiac murders. So these are suspected victims in the time that we can definitively determine what the Zodiac murders are. On February 21st, 1970, John Franklin Hood, who was 24, and his fiancée, Sandra Garcia, who was 20, visited East Beach in Santa Barbara. The couple left their Santa Barbara home at 6 p.m. Earlier the following day, their fully clothed bodies were discovered under their blanket. Hood was stabbed 11 times, mainly in the face and back. Garcia, though, received the brunt of the vicious attack, leaving her almost unrecognizable. The bone-handled 4-inch fish knife used in their murder was partially buried in the sand beneath the blanket.
Has he killed before with a knife?
Yeah, he's stabbed. Well, the potential murders are stabbings. I think the rest of them are shootings.
Okay, that's.
But there was stabbings in one of them, or shootings and stabbings in one.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to follow.
If I recall correctly.
There's so many of these.
I know. There did appear to be no sexual assault or anything like that, and again, robbery was ruled out. The double murder was similar to the 1963 killings of Domingos and Edwards, that was 30 miles west, and it also paralleled the 1969 Lake Berryessa attacks. So couples on a beachy area.
Were they tied up in this case or no?
It didn't say whether they were or not.
Okay.
The next potential victim is Donna Lass. She was born and raised in the small town of Beresford, South Dakota. She graduated from the local high school in 1962, and by 1965, after attending St. Joseph Mercy School of Nursing in Iowa, I wonder if your mom would know what that is, she was a registered nurse. In February of 1970, she accepted a position as a staff nurse at Letterman General Hospital on the Presidio Army Post, the same Army post where the Zodiac evaded capture after the Paul Stein murder. After a few months, though, she realized that this location was not for her, and so she moved to Lake Tahoe and got a job as a nurse at one of the popular casinos in the area. On September 3rd, Donna's old coworker, Joanne, spoke with her via phone and solidified plans for meeting up at the Sahara Hotel and Casino, which was Donna's workplace, for a Labor Day visit. However, when Joanne arrived, Donna was nowhere to be found and couldn't be found anywhere, and she couldn't find out from anyone if anyone else had seen her or knew where she was. After a while, she eventually spent the night in a nearby motel and then later went back to San Francisco when she hadn't heard from Donna in a few days. I don't really know how you could just leave, but I'm not going to blame her. She probably had a life to get back to. On Sunday, September 6th, both the Sahara Hotel and Donna's landlord received a phone call from an unidentified man who stated that he was relaying a message to them from Donna, that she had been forced to leave unexpectedly owing to an emergency illness in her family. After time passed and she had yet to return or get in contact with them, the casino reported her disappearance. Her boss also contacted her family, who immediately denied that there was a family emergency that brought her home. With no signs of struggle in her home, her car still being at the apartment, and locked with no signs of disturbance, it was safe to say that police and investigators were thoroughly confused. After the Chronicle and other San Francisco newspapers some 200 miles away wrote about her disappearance, Paul Avery received a Lake Tahoe postcard several months later with the potential connections to Donna's disappearance. Like the 13-hole punch card, placed over the original image is a collage of phrases like peek through the pines and around in the snow. It also said sought victim 12 and included the Zodiac symbol. So it's believed that Donna may be the 12th victim of the Zodiac. So that's that one you were looking at earlier. Peek through the pines.
Yeah.
So he receives that after his, the San Francisco newspapers published about this murder that was out past Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
So it's that postcard's from the area of Lake Tahoe, and it referencing another murder in that area.
Okay.
Later, in 1986, the Placer County Sheriff's Office located a skull near Emigrant Gap along California State Route 20 in the Sierra Nevada. In that same post, in one of his letters, he also referenced the Sierra. I don't know if you caught that earlier. That's a small detail. The South Lake Tahoe Police Department began investigating a connection to the Zodiac killing spree in 2001. They didn't really find much, but ultimately the skull was determined to be Donna Lass's in 2023 through DNA profiling.
Wow, that's quite a long time after.
Yeah, and that one's different too in that obviously she wasn't found she wasn't found before she was decomposed or anything like that. It was skeletal remains, and it was way more secluded than other areas. So that's a little bit of a deviation from his
Well,
MO.
also, this one is one where, let me open the letter up again. Around in the snow, sought victim 12, peek through the pines, past Lake Tahoe areas. It's all alludes to this being more secluded in the letter he sent. So, as much as this is outside his norm, he gave hints that there was a murder outside his norms.
Yeah, and Lake Tahoe in September is probably snowy.
Yeah.
At the top. Yeah, but I don't know where the skull was found, whether it was at the top or bottom, whatever.
So I'm thinking based on this, it heavily alludes to, here's a murder I did in this area. It's more secluded. Have fun finding it. Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't believe that the rest of her body has ever been found.
Which, if you're only finding a skull in this late, you're probably not finding the rest.
No. Many more unconfirmed Zodiac letters were sent to the media. We're going to briefly go through those. On August 1st, 1973, a letter was mailed to the Albany Times-Union in New York. The return address was the Zodiac symbol. The writer promised to kill again on August 10th. A 3-line code in the letter was supposed to reveal the name and location of the victim. FBI agents tasked with deciphering the code were able to determine, and then they redacted the name. So it says redacted by FBI. Albany Medical Center. This is only the beginning. No murder matched the details in the letter, and the handwriting was not a definitive match for the Zodiac, so it is believed that it's likely coincidental that a person put the Zodiac symbol.
Well, I mean, it's so publicized at this point, you're probably people with enough knowledge on how to do cryptography are going to join in.
Yeah.
Whether it's for shits and giggles or just to get an opportunity.
Or giggles and shits.
Or giggles and you should go shit yourself because you're an awful person.
Yep. The Chronicle received a letter postmarked February 14th of 1974 explaining that the Symbionese Liberation Army's initials spelled out an Old Norse word meaning kill, so SLA. The SLA had recently kidnapped newspaper heiress Patricia Hearst, which, if you're interested in hearing more about this kidnapping, I highly recommend going and listening to Morbid's podcast series on it. They just recently did it within the last couple of months. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. But anyway, the handwriting was not authenticated as the Zodiac's, but a USPS document examiner stated that in their professional opinion, the handwriting was a match for the other letters penned by the Zodiac. The FBI analysis was more conservative, but they didn't rule out that the letters could be written by the same individual. A letter to the Chronicle postmarked May 8th, 1974, but not received, funnily enough, until June 4th, wrote that Badlands, the movie of 1973, was, quote, murder glorification, and asked the paper to remove its advertisements. And it was signed by, quote, a citizen. The handwriting, tone, and sarcasm were similar to the Zodiac's letters. Much like, I think you had mentioned something earlier in the letters of, like, the how he writes and stuff like that, smug attitude kind of thing. Similar. Tone, sarcasm, all that similar. The Chronicle also received an anonymous letter postmarked July 8th, 1974, complaining about anti-feminist columnist Mark Spinelli, who wrote a, quote, glamour advice column under the name of Count Marco. The letter was signed, quote, the Red Phantom, parentheses, red with rage, end parentheses. The letter had an exaggerated type of handwriting that was very different from the typical Zodiac letters, but it was believed that it was so exaggerated as to disguise the handwriting of the author. But once Marco realized that he had caught the attention, likely, of the Bay Area's most notorious murderer, he decided that his 15-year career with the San Francisco Chronicle was enough, and he moved on, which is exactly what the letter writer wanted. So he did what they said, basically. In 2007, a long time later, an American Greetings Christmas card was discovered in the Chronicle's photo files.
I thought you were going to say it was sent out in 2007.
No, but it was postmarked from 1990 in Eureka.
Oh, okay.
So it's still years later, 6 years later from the previous one. Where's Eureka? I didn't write that down.
Eureka? Are we talking?
Is that Colorado? I don't know.
Is there? I would assume California, maybe.
I don't know. I forgot to write it down.
Well, let me see. Is there a Eureka?
It's near Vallejo, so it is in California.
Okay, because I know if we go all the way back to our first 10 episodes, Crescent Hotel and Spa is in Eureka, Arkansas.
Yeah, I don't think it's from there.
So, yeah, I don't think we're in that Eureka.
So the card was handed over to the Vallejo police, and a photocopy of 2 USPS office keys on a magnet keychain was also enclosed.
Did you use the website zodiacciphers.com?
No.
Because that just showed up. There's a whole website, I guess, dedicated to Zodiac ciphers.
I did not, but we can put it as a source if people are interested.
Oh, yeah. Wow, this is actually...
To be honest, the ciphers give me a lot of anxiety, so it's hard for me to look at them. No, I didn't use that, but that's really cool. We should definitely put that at the end.
Yeah, it has pictures of every single...
Yeah. So,
okay, so I'll put that... sorry, guys, for the little tangent there, but we're going to put a link that has all the ciphers in it.
Yeah. The handwriting on the envelope resembled the Zodiac's. However, a forensic document examiner deemed, though, that it was inauthentic. The discovery electrified Zodiac researchers. It suggested the killing spree may not have been stopped by death or imprisonment, and that the Zodiac might be alive. By this point, though, in 2025, I'm not really sure the likelihood of the Zodiac being alive or really in any shape to continue to kill. If you think about Joseph D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer, who I know I've mentioned many times in here, he was killing in the 70s and was old as hell when he was caught in 2020. So the likelihood of it's very unlikely the person would still be killing today. But what they're saying is that seemingly it stopped in 1974, right? And then obviously almost 2 decades later, or 3 decades later, we find that there's a postcard from 1990, which would suggest that the killer was either only imprisoned for a short period of time, and that's why he wasn't writing during that time or killing, or that he was still going on and had more victims after that.
This person's website is somebody actually from England. Oh my god, they are like so dedicated to the Zodiac Killer. It's insane.
That's really cool. I can't believe I didn't find that in my stuff.
How many suspects did you come up with?
There's only really one that I talk about.
Yes, 7 suspects, and there's a whole webpage for each of them.
Well, we'll put that in the link below, in the description. If you're interested, you can go check them out. But really, there is only one suspect that's considered like the big time deal there are potentially related serial murders in the area too. The, quote, astrological murders were committed by a suspected serial killer who was also active in the same region of California and the same time as the Zodiac. Police across multiple jurisdictions made a tentative connection between a single culprit and at least a dozen unsolved homicides that occurred between the late 1960s and early 1970s. All of the victims were female and were killed in a variety of ways, including strangulation, drowning, throat cutting, and bludgeoning, occasionally after being drugged. The killings were linked because the victims were dumped in ravines and killed in conjunction with astrological events, such as the winter solstice, the equinox, and Friday the 13th. This one, I'm not sure I can agree with based on the MO, though. I'm not sure. But it would add to the tally that the Zodiac put together. The Zodiac was also suspected of being the perpetrator behind the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. Between 1972 and 1973, at least 7 female hitchhikers were murdered in Sonoma County and Santa Rosa. In the Zodiac's January 29, 1974 exorcist letter to the Chronicle, he claimed 37 victims. A symbol in that letter matched Chinese characters that were on a soy barrel carried by one of the Santa Rosa victims. The Zodiac had warned he would vary his modus operandi, or MO, in a previous letter, stating, when I commit my murders, they shall look like routine robberies, feelings of anger, plus a few fake accidents, etc., of which we talked about that letter earlier. One of the main Zodiac suspects, who I'll get to in a minute, Arthur Lee Allen, was also suspected of being the Santa Rosa killer, so if they're the same person, that would make sense. The detectives involved with the Zodiac investigation, though, quickly ruled out that their killer was linked to these murders, but nevertheless, it's still a possibility. Some more recent developments, outside of the letter that was found in 2007. In April 2004, the San Francisco Police Department cited caseload pressure and marked the Zodiac case as inactive. But by March 2007, they had reactivated the case. I think a lot of that came from public pressure. The case remains open in Riverside and Napa County to today. In 2018, the Vallejo Police Department attempted to use GED match to catch the Zodiac, but they did not receive any definitive results. The FBI's investigation was still ongoing as of 2020. I think the GED it's genealogy. That's right. That's how they caught Golden State Killer, was using the genealogy match. They found a distant relative and traced it back. So they're trying to do the same thing with the Zodiac Killer.
Okay.
Now to the suspect. In 2009, The Guardian reported that the San Francisco Police Department had investigated about 2,500 Zodiac suspects, and only half a dozen of them were seen as credible by the department. Richard Grinnell, who runs the website... Oh my god, I did know this, hold on. Richard Grinnell, who runs the website Zodiac Ciphers, stated in 2022 that there are probably 50 or 100 suspects named every year. So I didn't look at his website. I got that. He's on the Wikipedia.
Yeah, his website is fucking massive.
So I did know at least... I just didn't use the website. Sorry, Richard, but you go, man. You're on the Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I did use Wikipedia.
You should look sometime after, because if you ever want to do a little rehash of this, you can look at his website.
I'm good.
It's probably the length of your whole book if you want to get through the whole website.
The book I read was 274 pages. You think it's similar?
Let's see. If I look at Zodiac News, he has so many news articles. If I look at the Lake Herman murders, there's 10 different pages. He must
have the copies of each of the articles. That's awesome.
Let's see. He has 7 different suspects, one being Ted Kaczynski. All the letters, multiple stuff on the Halloween card, multiple things on ciphers. He has news updates. I'm just going to scroll through this real quick for you. Every single one of these.
Holy shit.
Some less than others, but some more. All right. And then all of these, I think, are clickable things. And then if you scroll down, all of those
Holy
are
mother
links.
of God. Holy shit. Wow. Yeah, definitely go check that out.
Yeah. Sage, would you agree that this is a very large website?
Yeah. Honestly, it's a little overwhelming, so I probably wouldn't have used it anyway.
Yeah, I think you might not have. Now that I look at how just absolute overwhelming this is. And this is a guy who I think his only purpose in life right now is to investigate the Zodiac Killer.
Well, I mean, you do you, man. So
and get on the Wikipedia for it.
Yeah. The only man to ever be named by the police as a suspect was Arthur Lee Allen, who I mentioned just a bit ago, as being a suspect for the Santa Rosa murders as well. He was a former elementary school teacher, mechanic, cashier, and convicted sex offender, and he died in 1992. He grew up in Vallejo, California, and when he was 19, he applied to be in the Vallejo Police Department, but was rejected. In 1957, he enlisted in the Navy, and he was arrested in June of 1958 for disturbing the peace in an incident involving a man named Ralph Spinelli, but charges against him were later dismissed, and at the age of 25, he then received an honorable discharge from the Navy. Allen did vehemently deny being the Zodiac Killer, as would I think anybody who was suspected of it.
Oh, no, I'm definitely going to be like, yeah, I'm the Zodiac murderer or Zodiac Killer. I'm just going to admit it to it. Everyone's ever going to deny it every time.
Yeah. He was interviewed by police from the early days of the investigation and was subject to several related search warrants over a 20-year period. On October 6, 1969, Allen was interviewed by Detective John Lynch of the Vallejo Police Department. Allen had been reported in the vicinity of the Lake Berryessa attack on September 27th. He told Lynch that he was going to go to Lake Berryessa, but changed his mind and went scuba diving at Salt Point State Park instead. In 1971, Allen's former friend Donald L. Cheney reported to Manhattan Beach Police that Allen had spoken of his desire to kill people, used the name Zodiac, and secured a flashlight to a firearm for visibility at night. Cheney said this conversation occurred no later than January 1st, 1969. Allen was interviewed again on August 4th of 1971, this time by Detective Mullinax of the Vallejo Police Department and Inspectors Toshi and Bill Armstrong of the San Francisco Police Department. Allen admitted to having possession of bloody knives the day of the Berryessa attack, claiming that he used the knives to, quote, kill a chicken. In September 1972, the San Francisco Police Department obtained a search warrant for Allen's Santa Rosa trailer. Not super sure what all came out of that. But in 1974, Allen was arrested for lewdness with a 9-year-old boy. After pleading guilty, he was sent to the Atascadero State Hospital for pre-sentence evaluation and treatment. On May 13th, 1977, Allen was given a suspended prison sentence and 5 years of felony probation. He completed probation successfully in 1982. Allen's arrest and sentencing could provide a potential reason for why the Zodiac's communication stopped in 1974. A possible Zodiac letter that was received in 1978 was right after Allen was released. After an old nemesis of Allen's named Ralph Spinelli, the person from above, told Vallejo Police Department he had admitted to him he was a Zodiac, Vallejo Police served another search warrant in February of 1991. And then 2 days after his death in 1992, they served another warrant and seized property from his residence. On August 16, 1991, Michael Mago, a previous victim, identified Allen from a photo lineup of 1968 driver's licenses as the man who had shot him in 1969, saying, "That's him, it's the man who shot me." In contrast, police officer Donald Folk, who, with officer Eric Zelms, possibly saw the Zodiac fleeing the Paul Stein murder scene, said in the 2007 documentary, his name was Arthur Lee Allen, that Allen weighed about 100 pounds more than the man Folk saw, and that Allen's face was, quote, too round. Allen and the Zodiac did, however, both wear shoe size 10.5. Nancy Slover, the police dispatcher, who received the call from the Zodiac after the Mago Farron shooting, said in the documentary that Allen did not sound like the man with whom she spoke. Allen also owned and wore a Zodiac watch, a brand that uses a logo similar to the killer's Zodiac symbol.
I actually just I opened up the page on the Zodiac ciphers, and that watch is one of the first images.
Yeah. The letter sent to the Riverside Police Department from Sherry Joe Bates killer, that I mentioned above, was printed with either Elite or Pica typeface on a Royal typewriter. And during the 1991 search of Allen's residence, police seized a Royal typewriter with Elite type. Shortly before his death, Allen wrote a letter to Rita Williams, a reporter from the San Francisco station KTVU, who had just interviewed him. The letter contained grammatical mistakes similar to those of the Zodiac letters. Williams firmly believes that Allen was the Zodiac. Retired police handwriting expert Lloyd Cunningham, who worked on the Zodiac case for decades as well, stated in 2009, quote, "They gave me banana boxes full of Allen's writing, and none of his writing even came close to the Zodiac, nor did DNA extracted from the envelopes, quote, on the Zodiac letters, or like, on the Zodiac letters is what he's referring to, came close to Arthur Lee Allen." In 2002, Sidney Holt of the San Francisco Police Department Crime Lab developed a partial DNA profile from saliva on stamps and envelopes of the Zodiac's letters, especially the stamp on November 8th, 1969 card, for the ABC News program Primetime Thursday. A partial DNA profile cannot, quote, point to just one person, as it can only rule someone in as a possibility or exclude them if it isn't a match. The San Francisco Police Department compared this partial profile to that of Arthur Lee Allen. Since the test result indicated a no match, he was excluded as the contributor of the DNA. Allen's fingerprints also did not match those lifted from the Stein murder. In 2018, Tom Voigt, a veteran Zodiac internet sleuth, stated that the partial profile's efficacy was dubious, as he had learned that the DNA was, quote, collected from the outside of the stamp on the November 1969 card. No genetic material was obtained from behind the stamp or the seal of the envelope or anywhere else that would have most certainly belonged to the Zodiac. So that could have been from anybody.
And I'm also I'm seeing another person who did you just mention was talking about?
Tom Voigt.
Okay, 'cause I'm seeing Robert Graysmith was mentioning how...
yeah, I have a lot of stuff by him.
How he said so many people handled it that he doesn't trust the DNA evidence.
Yep.
Sorry, I was like looking, trying to see where you're at, and I was just like looking at
yeah,
what's his name, Richard Grinnell's stuff. Okay, sorry, go ahead. I'm like at one point like literally reading the same thing you were saying.
Voigt claimed that this had been confirmed by Holt, as well as an unnamed retired San Francisco Police Department inspector, and that the discovery reaffirmed Allen's status as a viable suspect. So stating that the DNA came from the outside, not the inside, reaffirmed Allen as a potential suspect, since there was no way to definitively rule him out in that case. There are some who speculate that Darlene Ferrin, who was one of the first murders that we talked about, knew her killer, reportedly Robert Graysmith, who you just mentioned, has a book called Zodiac that he published in 1986 that inspired the origin of this theory. He argued that there was a connection between the Zodiac and Darlene due to interviews with her friends, though there is no definitive connection that's ever been made. Her date, Mago, gave conflicting accounts on whether Ferrin knew her killer. At the hospital, he stated he did not know the murderer. At another point, he said the assailant's name was Richard. Ferrin's sister claimed one of Darlene's boyfriends was named Richard. In the Zodiac's later correspondence, he only ever refers to Ferrin as girl. In Graysmith's telling, Ferrin and Mago were chased. They only stopped when their car hit a log and stalled. The detective on the scene noticed that the car was still on and in low gear. Keller and Nyes suggest that Ferrin would not tell Mago to ignore the mystery driver, so Keller and Nyes, or other sleuths, would not tell Mago to ignore the mystery driver, nor would they assume that he was a police officer if they had not stopped at the spot by choice. What they're saying is they didn't actually get chased away, likely. Rather, they got stopped by choice because she knew the person who was there. Ferrin also did know Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. She lived less than 2 blocks from Jensen and also attended Hogan High School. She was also familiar with the Lake Herman Road status as a lover's lane. There's a picture of Ferrin and an unknown man who closely resembles a composite sketch of the Zodiac at that area. In 2011, an episode of America's Most Wanted, police stated they believed the photo was taken in San Francisco in either 1966 or 1967. There's never been a definitive link between Darlene and the killer made, though. Especially because we don't know who the killer is. So, hard to make a definitive link if there's no killer. In 1976, Toshi told the Associated Press that Zodiac letters were, quote, an ego game. He believed the killer lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's a weekend killer. Why can't he get away Monday through Thursday? This is his quote. Does his job keep him close to home? I would speculate he maybe has a menial job, is well thought of, and blends into the crowd. I think he's quite intelligent and better educated than someone who misspells words as frequently as he does in his letters. Could this be describing Arthur Lee Allen, who reportedly was pretty smart as he was a teacher? I mean, you have to know how to spell, I would assume.
There's a lot of jobs you know how to spell for.
Yeah.
They didn't have that handy-dandy autocorrect yet.
Fair. So the legacy of the Zodiac Killer. So the legacy of the Zodiac.
Shitty legacy, I'll tell you that.
It is. In 2020, the Chronicle called the Zodiac case the most famous unsolved murder case in American history. Dozens of books and documentaries have focused on the Zodiac, and the original and most influential amateur book was Robert Graysmith's Zodiac from 1986.
Well, you talk about unsolved serial killer, Zodiac, I'm pretty sure would be the first to come to mind for
it is definitely the first one.
What's your next biggest unsolved serial killer?
Well, I mean, in America, it's Zodiac.
In
the
England,
UK, it's
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper. I would say, like, the other one we did, which was the Mesa Bone Collector.
Yeah, and that one's like regional. Like, not many people know about that. Unsolved. There's plenty of unsolved serial killers out there, but none are as big as Zodiac Killer. Not even close.
No, none did what he did, which was send a bunch of freaking letters.
Yeah, be very public about it. You don't often have very public showings of it, like the
which just goes to show like how sociopathic this dude is, because he's taunting.
When it comes to unsolved serial killers, the Doodler's up there, but that's not even that well known.
Yeah. So Robert Graysmith was working at the San Francisco Chronicle as a cartoonist while the Zodiac was corresponding with the paper, and so he was able to compile his research from having worked at the newspaper into an authoritative investigation that remains a touchstone for other researchers, hence why Zodiac Ciphers has him listed on there. John Bowman published the book The Allen Files, containing Arthur Lee Allen's military records, and then that was then followed by Zodiac Killer, Fact versus Fiction. Since 2013, United States Senator Ted Cruz has been accused of being the Zodiac as a popular internet meme. I don't know who started this.
All I know is happened in 2016. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump made a joke about it while he was running.
Oh. So he didn't start it, he just made a joke about it?
I think he made a joke about it. Why, do you have that in there?
No, I wrote who started this.
I don't know.
But it is definitely something that I've said before, so, can't deny that. You're looking it up.
I'm trying to confirm that Trump made a joke about it. No. Okay. Trump accused Ted Cruz's father of helping the JFK assassin.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I believe Ted Cruz has acknowledged, though, the Ted Cruz Zodiac Killer meme. There's a whole Wikipedia page on it.
There's a lot of Wikipedia pages that are linked with this. I think a lot of them are linked under the Zodiac Killer Wikipedia page, so you can just find stuff from there. The Zodiac Killer inspired copycat killers like Heriberto Seda in New York City and Shinichiro Azuma in Japan, both of whom called themselves the Zodiac. In 2021, an anonymous author sent letters to media outlets in Albany, New York, using a Chinese Zodiac Killer nickname.
Also, wait real quick. Ted Cruz did a video being the Zodiac Killer.
That's both very creepy and also hilarious.
During his run for Senate in 2022.
We should totally watch that. Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk, who perpetrated the 2006 murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart, cited the Zodiac as one of their inspirations in their homemade videos for pop culture. The first film about the Zodiac Killer was produced 2 years after his last confirmed murder during his letter writing campaign. Tom Hansen's The Zodiac Killer was made as a scheme to capture the Zodiac Killer. The film premiered on April 19, 1971 at the Golden Gate Theater in San Francisco. The audience members were given a survey with the prompt, quote, "I think the Zodiac kills because," and they were asked to complete the sentence and promised the best response would be rewarded with a Kawasaki motorcycle. The audience surveys were secretly compared to the Zodiac's handwritings. Hansen hoped the killer's supposed egotism, or selfishness really, would lure him, or narcissism I guess would be the right word, would lure him to the movie, and so he deployed volunteers to detain anyone whose handwriting matched the Zodiac's. The scheme lasted for several screenings, and only in one did the volunteers actually confront one potential suspect, held him for a bit before releasing him due to a lack of evidence. The Zodiac inspired villains in multiple movies, including Scorpio in Dirty Harry, 1971, the Gemini Killer in The Exorcist 3 of 1990, which is ironic, since he may have wrote the letter about the first Exorcist movie, John Doe in Seven from 1995, and the Riddler in The Batman from 2022. The Zodiac case is also the subject of the film Zodiac from 2007, directed by David Fincher, who also directed the movie Seven. Fincher grew up in the Bay Area during the Zodiac killings, so he was very familiar with the case. The film was an adaptation of Robert Graysmith's books, focusing on Graysmith and Paul Avery's investigation over their 23 years working for the San Francisco Chronicle. The filmmakers extensively researched the case, conducting interviews with people involved in the case, But the film posits Arthur Lee Allen's culpability and led to more public interest in the Zodiac as well. Criminal Minds also made a serial killer that resembled the Zodiac. The episode True Genius from season 7, episode 11, is based on the Zodiac Killer, as the Behavioral Analysis Unit team investigates a series of murders that resembled the Zodiac style, leading them to question if the original killer had returned. So they're saying their case was could have been a, return of the Zodiac. As we conclude the 4-part series of the Zodiac Killer, I'm going to leave you with a little more information.
I just want to make sure. You did say the Batman, right?
Yeah.
Does he know? That's all I remember is the name.
Vengeance.
Did you not... I know we watched that together. Did you not realize the parallels between him and the Zodiac Killer?
I didn't really put it together. That was a really long movie, and I was also really mad at those kids who...
Wouldn't shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
It was a good movie, though.
It was I want to watch it again. But yes, I did talk about him.
Okay, sorry. I was listening to all of them, but also watching as our dog got up from his one sleeping position to get to another one, and I had to make sure he wasn't being bad during it, and he's good.
I'm pretty sure the heated blanket's still on too.
So. I know. I think he wants us to go back to the living room. So
we're
I think
done.
I think we ought to be wrapping up here.
Yeah. So as we conclude the 4-part series of the Zodiac, I'm going to leave you with a little more information, and you can take this information as you will. In 1976, 7 years after the start of the definitive Zodiac murders, the largest controversy ever to plague the Zodiac investigation would begin. After working on the case for over 7 years, Detective Toshi, who I've mentioned multiple times throughout these episodes, would start writing anonymous letters praising his own investigative work to the San Francisco Chronicle columnist Armistead Maupin. He was doing so under the guise of the Zodiac Killer, offering him praise for his work. Maupin recognized the handwriting as Toshi's, but didn't really do much with the letters. However, when the letter from the actual, likely, Zodiac arrived in April of 1978, a letter that ultimately benefited Toshi due to his involvement with the case, it got to keep him going, Maupin went to the police and asked them to look into the possibility of that letter also being written by Toshi. Unfortunately for him, he was found out in 1978, and he was removed from the Zodiac case and demoted to pawn shop detail, which fucking sucks.
Oh my!
So he went from being one of, if not the most prolific serial homicide investigations, to pawn shop detail because he was so ridiculous that he wanted to praise himself in the newspaper.
But then an actual letter from the Zodiac came in.
Yeah, and he got called out essentially.
What was that letter the Zodiac sent in?
It was the April 1978 letter.
Okay, was.
Hold on, let me go back and find. I think.
Does he mention something about the fake letters or?
Hold on, I gotta remember which one it is. There's so many letters. It's so hard to keep track of them.
I know.
It was the "I'm back with you" letter. That was instantly recognizable and had written in signature blue felt tip pen. It did call out Toshi in that one.
Oh, okay. You're good or bad?
It didn't really say much about the actual letters or anything.
Okay. So I'll let you get back to where you were then.
So Toshi did at least express regret for the hoax, and is reported as saying, quote, "It was kind of like sending fan mail to myself. It was done in a harmless way. I didn't think anyone was going to be hurt by it. It was a vain thing to do, not an intelligent thing. I am ashamed of it now." You should be.
Yeah.
That same year, when the 1978 letter came in, Maupin, that columnist that Toshi was writing his praise letters to, received that letter and took it to a different San Francisco police detective to find out whether or not Toshi wrote that letter too. But due to the similarities between the other Zodiac letters and this one and Toshi's letters, it was more definitively the Zodiac's letter rather than Toshi's. So, understandable why this would impact the integrity of the rest of the years of investigation. So, I'm going to ask you such an open-ended question. What are your thoughts, Frank?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to that one guy who mentioned does seem likely. I know we started watching a documentary a while ago. Was that the guy?
That's about him, yeah. This is the Zodiac speaking.
It does sound like him. Just from
there's a lot. I think that there's a lot of circumstantial evidence for sure.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing. Circumstantial doesn't hold up in court, but can hold up in the court of public opinion.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
court of
It's a good way of putting that.
The court of public opinion does have a lot
Say
of strength.
that 5 times fast.
Court of public opinion, court of public opinion, court of public opinion, court of public opinion, court of public opinion.
You were really good till the last one.
Really good till the last one. You know what? You told me to do it, I did it. But I'm going with court of public opinion on this one and saying him. I would have to look at the other 6 people on Richard Grinnell's website.
I think you combined the 2 people. Isn't it Richard Graysmith?
No, Grinnell. Graysmith is that's Robert Graysmith.
Oh, jeez. Look at you being better than I am.
I'm pretty sure. He has Ted Kaczynski on there, the Unabomber, but I don't think it was him.
No, that doesn't make sense to me. Those are, I would say, Did
you know there's an Italian Unabomber?
No. I mean, I guess it could make sense because the Zodiac did threaten to bomb.
Yeah, but I don't think it would have been, because Ted Kaczynski was successful in his bombings.
Wasn't that, where did that take place?
I forget.
Oklahoma?
No, that's a whole different bombing. I'm pretty sure Ted Kaczynski's were spread out.
Stop bombing people.
Exactly. We'll be talking about more bombings next week, I'll tell you that. Come back next week for bombings again. I am not kidding. My next one, I think, has a Christian-inspired bombing.
That doesn't make any sense, but I will
They
wait
wanted
till
to do
next
it
week.
for Christianity. They bombed something, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say thank you for joining us if you have listened to all 4 parts.
And if you're still listening now, because based on pre-editing, we are at... What do you think we're at right now?
140.
1 hour and 49 minutes.
Yeah, so thanks for listening as we dove into the Zodiac Killer. I am impressed that we made it this far and that I made it this far. But I am so fucking happy to be done with the research about this crazy ass fucking guy.
Yeah, I didn't really want you to have to do another week of this too.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad it sucks that it's so long, but like I just needed to get it done. It wouldn't have made sense to split it into 2 because they would have been short episodes, so. Yep.
All right.
Well, let us know in the comments if you believe that Arthur Lee Allen was responsible for being the Zodiac, or if you have other thoughts.
Or was Ted Cruz or Ted Kaczynski. The Teds.
Yeah, literally any of them. I think that's the furnace.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear our furnace right now or not. Oh well. Is that all you had for today then?
Thank God. That is all I had for today.
I think it's time for me to wrap it up. I have an hour to edit. Fuck. Thank you everyone for listening. If you like what you're listening to, go check us out on our socials, our Instagram, TikTok, or Blue Sky. And if you like what you're listening to, that's definitely the furnace. So maybe we might have to change our recording location going forward, seeing that the furnace is definitely going off right now. Go check us out on our socials, and if you like what you're listening to, rate, comment, review, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're listening on. Every little bit matters and helps boost us in the algorithms. We really appreciate all of it. Thank you everyone for coming by. So I will see you guys next week for my birthday episode.
Birthday!
Because it will be released on my birthday, where we'll be going conspiracy again, finally.
Frank's favorite place.
With a bombing.
Not Frank's favorite place.
So, remember.
To look for.
The unknown.
The unsolved.
And the unseen.
Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Don't beat the Zodiac, please.